I did not have a Josh Peck cameo on my Last of Us bingo card.
Only the most sophisticated gaming experience ever created by humans, and it's spherical. Spherical!
I also didn't have Shimmer surviving this episode on my bingo card either. Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel. And today we are reviewing Season 2, Episode 4 of The Last of Us. And I want to preface this video by saying that I am a massive fan of The Last of Us Part 2 game. It's my favorite game of all time, and because of that, I'll be splitting this video into two different sections. The majority of this video will be spoilers for this episode for any non-gamers, with comparisons to the game up until this point in time. And the last section will be talking about the implications that this episode has on the rest of the story, with some game spoilers at the very end. I'll leave time codes down below if you want to jump around, but without further ado, let's get into this episode. And if you end up enjoying this review, make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe to the channel to see videos just like this. I have weekly reviews out for The Last of Us, along with movie reviews like Thunderbolts that I just talked about earlier this week, which was great. Now, onto the show. This episode is titled Day 1 as we jump into the first day of Ellie and Dina's journey through Seattle. In the game, it is structured through 3 days in Seattle, and this episode perfectly adapts that section of the game almost entirely one-to-one, with one key change that I actually think is a brilliant one. This episode kicks off with a flashback to a Fedra convoy driving through Seattle, and we meet Isaac, played by Jeffrey Wright, in both the game and the show, which is awesome that they were able to get him cast in this as well. I don't quite remember if they gave any hints to this backstory for Isaac in the game, but it's very interesting to see that this character started as a Fedra soldier before defecting to the Wolves and killing his entire convoy, including Josh Peck, whose cameo here is oddly jarring but welcome, I guess.
Spherical!
But I find this introduction very interesting, especially if it is original to the show, which I'm pretty sure it is, as we see him later on in this episode interrogating one of these Seraphites, or Scars as he calls them. The Seraphite says that him, along with the Wolves, are bound to lose this war because Seraphites are loyal. No Seraphites will ever defect to become a wolf, but many wolves have already gone to become Seraphites. Isaac's own defection from Fedra was probably one of the large reasons why Fedra no longer exists in Seattle, and so his reaction to immediately shoot this character is a lot more than him just realizing that, oh, this guy's not going to give me any new information. I just want to kill this guy because he's pointing a mirror in my face and showing me exactly what type of person I really am, what type of, group I'm running. The Wolf Seraphite War is such an integral aspect of the game's second half, and I'm very glad that we're diving into this conflict at this point in the story, as it very much represents the themes of cycle of violence that the game does so incredibly well, to a point where even now Isaac is seen becoming the very thing that he fought against just in the couple of minutes of screen time that he's had in the show so far. But this episode truly belongs to Bella Ramsey and Isabela Merced. As I mentioned in the past couple of videos talking about the show, taking out the game's weed farm scene between Ellie and Dina gives the show the opportunity to build this romance over the course of the season, rather than it being concrete from the very start of this story. And this is a change that I absolutely love, and why I think that Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann have mastered the art of adaptation. Because that sequence was skipped, some people were very worried that we wouldn't get those beats inside of this show, but we got all of them throughout the past 4 episodes in probably a more effective way than we had inside of the game. We got the dance sequence right off the bat, setting the stage for the will they won't they dynamic to grow. Ellie and Dina have shared trauma and motivations in Joel being killed by Abby and the Wolves, showing that Dina has a true ride or die dynamic with Ellie. On their journey to Seattle, we got the kiss rating conversation in the last episode, which took place on the weed farm inside the game. This shows Dina continuing to test the waters between the two of them, but her love for Ellie is solidified in this episode by the Take On Me scene, which is one of my favorites from the game. I'll get into the action we see during the rest of this episode in a minute here, but the moment where Ellie, through instinct, lets herself get bit to save Dina's life is a monumental one. Rather than confessing to Dina that she is immune like she did inside the game, Dina gets to see it happen right in front of her and live with the thought that she now has to kill the woman she has just fully fell in love with just scenes before this point. And I have to further give praise to Isabela Merced for her portrayal of Dina in the season so far. She has all the charisma in the world, and the chemistry between her and Bella Ramsey is palpable. And in this moment, we get to see the true heartbreak in her eyes. It is absolutely crushing on a character level, but also terrifying for the audience as Dina points a gun at Ellie, ready to face the consequences of a potential infection inside of this character that she loves. This also sort of happens in the game. Rather than being bit, Ellie's gas mask is cracked, causing her to breathe in the spores, which in the game is an airborne particle that spreads the cordyceps virus. Dina is about to take off her mask to sacrifice herself to save Ellie, but she reminds her of her immunity conversation that they had earlier in the story, which Dina didn't believe at first, but is willing to accept it a lot quicker than she does here inside of the show. Since Ellie never confessed to Dina in the series, the tension in this moment is so much greater and the stakes feel incredibly heightened, but as soon as Ellie convinces Dina to wait it out and prove her immunity, her willingness to share her secret of being pregnant just comes out in a full moment of trust between the two, and we finally get to see them solidify their relationship in this scene, which is incredibly satisfying as we built this up for the past 4 episodes. And honestly, I think the show has done a much better job at building Ellie and Dina's relationship than the game did, and I actually do still love their dynamic inside of the game. The constraints of storytelling, though, in an action-based game does have its downsides when it comes to characterization, so seeing Mazin and Druckmann absolutely nail the story was incredibly satisfying. When it came to season 1 of The Last of Us, it also nailed the character dynamics for the most part at least, but it did lack the action, leaving a couple key moments that I loved from the game on the cutting room floor. It does seem as though they learned their lessons from the last season, as we get to see some of the best moments from Seattle Day 1 in this episode, along with all the fantastic character work that they have done. In the game, Day 1 had a lot of wandering around the Seattle QZ before heading to the radio station like we see here in this episode, so cutting a lot of that out, besides of course the Take On Me scene, was fitting to see here. But the entire sequence of them going into the radio station, seeing the aftermath of the Seraphite attack, and escaping the retaliation of the wolves, with them thinking that they are the Seraphites, was kept entirely intact. We even get to see Ellie pull off a stealth kill, which got me way too excited as a fan of the game. The chase leading into the subway station was tense, and the presence of the infected elevated the sequence just as much as it did inside of the game. The only thing that I wish this sequence did differently was for Ellie to throw a bottle to get the infected to attack the wolves, which is exactly what I did to get out of this situation inside of the game. But besides that one little tiny note, all of this was perfect for me. A large factor as to why this worked so well for me as a player of the game was the accuracy of these sets here as well. The production designers absolutely crushed the design of the radio station with the hanging bodies, which is just as disturbing as it was inside of the game, and the subway sets was absolutely incredible. The flares lighting the scene kept the same atmosphere from the game, and the chase in and out of the train cars was just as thrilling as it was when I was playing the game all those years ago. This was easily one of my favorite sequences from the game, and I'm just very glad to see it fully realized in live action, unlike the Fallen Tower sequence from the first game, which sadly did not make the cut.
Jump!
I really hope that this episode gives non-gamers the confidence that this show can work as well as it did, if not even better than season 1, without the star power of Pedro Pascal. The action and horror sequences here were perfect, and Bella Ramsey and Isabela Merced proved that they can lead this show into the future as they stare down their next targets for Seattle Day 2. They have just acquired one of the Wolf's radios and hear Nora's name being called out, giving them a way to find Abby. And if you know the game, you know that the next episode is going to continue this episode's level of intensity. But that's going to be it for my thoughts on this episode itself. Now I want to get into the spoilers for the game, as there were a couple moments here that got me really excited for the future. So for any non-gamers, thanks for watching. Comment down below your thoughts on this episode, and I'll catch you all next week. But for the gamers, let's get into it. The last few episodes all had major changes to the game that had implications on what further changes would be made for the rest of the season, but as this episode was so incredibly faithful, I don't have too many more thoughts that I haven't gone over already in my other videos. I will say that the 3-month time jump from the last episode gives a lot more of a realistic timeline for Abby's arc in season 3. They're doing a fantastic job at setting the stage for the Seraphite and Wolf War inside of this episode, and with the scope of the entire sequence of Jackson being attacked in episode 2, I cannot wait to see the war be fully realized in season 3 of The Last of Us. Hearing the Seraphite talk about how none of their people have ever defected immediately made me think of Lev and Yara, who I cannot wait to see here inside of the show. They painted both sides of this war as black and whites. They cannot and will not see eye to eye, and the hate for each other is stronger than anything that could possibly happen to bring them together, at least from an outside perspective. Since we are so firmly in Ellie's POV, they all just seem like monsters killing each other with hardly any nuance. But as it is with everything in this story, the gray areas are going to be the focus of the story, and it seems as if they are heading in the right direction to do just that. As I already mentioned, I love Ellie and Dina's dynamic inside of the game, especially as it moves past the events of Seattle. Dina talks about the future she sees with Ellie in this episode that's absolutely killed me. Her dreaming of them being together with a baby seems like a beautiful sentiment for any non-gamers, but to those of us who know, it just makes Neil Druckmann look even more like a sick bastard that he is for writing the most tragic story to ever be told.
Holy shit. I'm gonna be a dad.
Yeah.
But in the very least, this episode did a great job at making me believe so much that these two can live happily together once we get to that point of the story, but we've yet to see Ellie's darker side that threatens to ruin their happy ending. With a tease of Nora at the end of this episode, I hope that we'll get just that moving forward. Bella Ramsey has nailed the more intimate side of Ellie's character, but we've only seen a glimpse of her darker half in the moment Joel was killed and in her waking nightmares the day after. Ellie's killing of Nora in the game was the turning point for me in thinking that Ellie was on the wrong path, so hopefully that the show can have the exact same impact with that moment in this season. We also got a sneak peek at the introduction of spores in the preview for the next episode, which will be a fascinating new development moving forward. I'm assuming that Ellie's immunity will still hold up with the introduction of this new threat, but since it is a new mutation of the cordyceps fungal infection, maybe it spells more death than we think. In the very least, I'm glad that we're getting into it, as one of the most badass things and equally terrifying things that Ellie does inside of the game is throw herself along with Nora into the spore-infected area of the hospital in order to escape the wolves and torture information of Abby's whereabouts out of her. But after this episode's complete success in adapting Seattle Day 1, I have nothing but faith that they will do the same with Day 2. Also, based on the preview for next week, my theory of getting Joel flashbacks inside of the next episode as a way of Ellie explaining to Dina what she went through in terms of being immune is most likely going to be wrong. Maybe we'll get flashbacks in episode 6 instead, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they hold off until the very finale. If anything, not seeing Pedro Pascal until the final episode could give the impact of his appearance a lot more weight. But those are just going to be my thoughts on The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 4. For any gamers, I'd love to hear your thoughts as well in the comment section down below. Just make sure you tag your comments with a spoiler warning. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel to see more reviews just like this one. I believe Friendship is the next film releasing in theaters, so stay tuned for a review for that one on either Thursday or Friday. So thanks everyone for watching this video, and I hope to see you all in my next one.